You're supposed first. Yeah. Yeah. Before we get underway, if someone online could just give me a thumbs up to tell me that you can hear. You can hear me? We're okay?
Yes, we hear.
Thank you. I'll make sure. Yeah, good. You have to, I'll mute the sound on this
Come
one.
on, turn it up.
All the names. Oh, it's a lot of names.
57 participants.
But your name should be.
Don't forward it to me.
I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
I'm just shifting and looking for.
Okay. Oh, it's on your count. That's why. 57.
On my socks. What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Just test it again. Someone else could just send me again and just put a thumbs up or something if you can hear me. I'm using two different systems. Thank you. Sounds good. This. Okay. Good. Cancel. Oh, no. It's not. Just as we're getting underway, just a couple of things to keep in mind. Firstly, out of deference to the gathering tonight, I ask everyone, please check your phone one more time to make sure that the ringer is off. That's the first thing. Secondly, we're going to be, at the end tonight, we're going to recite one of the special keynote for 10-7, about 200 sheets outside. If you didn't get one, it's okay. I'm going to ask that the Gabayim, if you just bring someone, just go outside and get them for the women, for the men, half. It should have been circulated already. We're going to say that tonight. Okay, say that a little later this evening, and to have that in mind. We're here tonight for 5 reasons. 5 reasons the mission of Masechet Tani tells us. First, because this was the night that the Jewish people cried. The Torah tells us in Parshat Shlach, and again in Parshat Devarim, that the sin of the spies, they returned today, the 8th of Av, and tonight, 9 Av, was the night of crying, a mourning over an inability to get to the land of Israel, to conquer the land of Israel, to secure the land of Israel, and that's the first reason we're here tonight. The second and third reasons are both related to the destruction of 2 temples. For the uninitiated, it's the same location, both of them. I actually still get this question sometimes. You have to clarify sometimes for your friends and neighbors and co-workers. We didn't have one temple in Jerusalem until now. We had a temple. It was destroyed in the year 586 BCE. We rebuilt it in 516 BCE. The second temple was destroyed in the year 70 CE. So it's in exactly the same place. Other people came and they built a structure there in a religion that they founded in and around the year 638. Judaism, if you go by our years, let's say the secular years, were approximately 3,300 years old to Sinai, but we're older than that. If you go back, we're approximately 4,000 years old, more than that because it goes back to, we think around the year, remember the year, 1948 BCE, plus minus, is when Avraham Avinu comes the first time to Eretz Canaan. So Judaism has had a connection to Eretz Israel since that time. That's the first thing Hashem tells Avraham Avinu. And the temple was destroyed in the year 586 BCE. If you want to know why, you can read the book of Yirmiyahu, the book of Yechezkel, the book of Yeshaya, the book of Hosea, and Amos, and you can look through all of the different Nevi'im, and you can see that they were telling the Jewish people that if they don't shape up their behavior, they're not going to be deserving of being in Eretz Israel. And the Nevi'im tried, and they weren't listened to. We didn't listen. First, they exiled the 10 tribes in 722 BCE, the so-called 10 lost tribes, Machloket and the Gemara, if they ever came back. That is at the hands of the Assyrians. And then the remaining 2 tribes Yehuda and Binyamin in a series of deportations, I know the word for it, transferring the population to Babylonia in around the beginning of, call it the 6th century BCE, and going through until 586, destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. The second Beit HaMikdash, everybody knows, the Gemara in Masechet Yuma, was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, internecine fighting. Josephus writes in one place that internal fighting was so great that the Roman generals were already saying to each other, we don't have to conquer Jerusalem. It's going to conquer itself because the Jews are at loggerheads one with the other factions, parties that were taking up arms in some cases, Leil against each other. And in that, the enemy, Leil was able to succeed. And in 70 of the Common Era, the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. There was a valiant attempt to restart the Jewish army and the Jewish homeland as a third commonwealth in the years 132 to 135. That was the Bar Kokhba revolt. Unfortunately, the Romans crushed it, and between 135 and 138, they murdered many, many, many people. In addition to the soldiers who fell in battle, they then massacred, we don't know the exact number, it's untold numbers, in Beitar particularly, they murdered so many people, they said there was so much blood that that the horses were already tripping because there was so much blood that their hoofs were trying to walk in. And the final piece is that in the year 138, when the Hadrianic persecutions were coming to a close, they plowed over the city of Jerusalem, renamed it Aela Capitolina, made it a temple for idolatry, and in that intervening period, they also renamed the land of Israel, then called Medinat Yehud. They renamed it by another name, they call it Palestine, in order to distance Jews from the land of Israel. For those 5 reasons, we're here tonight. But that's only according to the Mishnah. We live after. We live 1,954 years since the Churban of the Beit HaMikdash. We mention the year each year. We live also after many, many chapters, unfortunately, of Jewish blood and tears. But we also gather tonight 76 years since the birth of Medinat Yisrael, the arrival, if you will, the beginnings of the third commonwealth of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And of course, 312 days since the start of Milchemet Simchat Torah. Tomorrow in the morning, we'll read from the book of Yirmiyahu. Tonight, we'll read also the book of Eicha. It's written by Yirmiyahu. It's called Sefer Kinot, and it's on page 22. Tomorrow, we'll read that there was a voice of wailing heard from Zion. Ki kol nehi nishma mitzion, ech shudadnu, boshnu me'od, ki azavnu eretz, ki ishlichu mishkenoteinu. Many of the Chachamim couldn't just open the book of Eicha, they had to first have an introduction. So that's the beginning of the Midrashim. Begin, Rabbi Yitzchak Patach, this Rabbi Patach, they opened with some opener. So Rabbi Yitzchak understood this verse about wailing heard out of Zion. And he asked, the trees are crying, the stones are crying. Zion itself, the voice of wailing is heard. Ella, says Rabbi Yitzchak, Mishahu Mashra Shinatu B'Tzion. The sound of wailing of crying comes from the one who causes his presence to dwell in Zion. How could it be that we were so we were plundered to such an extent? How did we come to such a place of degradation? We're ashamed. Why? What's Azavnu Aretz? We abandoned the land. Zu Eretz Yisrael. Dichtiv Eretz Asher Hashem Lokecha D'Reishota. The Torah says that God always seeks out the land of Israel. The eyes of the Almighty are always upon the land of Israel. And therefore, if we abandon the land, that causes wailing, as it were, from the Ribono Shel Olam, the Master of the universe himself. Those are the shuls, the Bati Knesset, the Bati Midrashot, the shuls and the Bati Medrash. If we abandon those, then we lose the land of Israel. So to the extent that we can here in Chutz La'aretz, we try our best to be engaged in the work of memory and the work of being Avelei Tzion. And we have a sense that this year, maybe more than others, that we really have a very important role to play to preserve historical memory and to live our memory through this period of the next 25 hours. We begin now with the words of Yirmiyahu Hanavi on page 22. The book that bears the name, the beginning of Kinot, And this is the first of the keynotes, 5 chapters, and then we'll recite another few tonight, and we'll pick up tomorrow morning with keynote number 6, and we'll keep going tomorrow in the morning to tuning in. Page 22. Eicha yashva vada ha'ir rabati am hayita ki almana rabati vagoyi sarati bamdinot hayita hamas bachot yivke balai Vidimata alecheya in la menachem mikol havea koreha baduva hayula oyevi galeta Yehuda meoni umeirov avoda hi yashva bagoyim lo matzah hanoach kolofea Hisiguha ben Ametzari Darchei Tzion Avelo Mibli Ba'emoed Kol Shareha Shomemin Kohaneha Ne'nachim Betulotea Nugot Vihimar La Hayu Tzarea Lerosh Oyeveha Shalu Ki Adonai Hoga Avot Sha'eha Olaleha Alchut Shavi B'fnei Tzar Yetzei Mibat Zion Kol Hadara Hayu Sareha Yayalim Lo Matzmu Mireh Vayilchu V'lo Choach Lifnei Rodeh Zachra Yerushalayim Yemei Onya Urudeha Kol Machamudeha Asher Hayu Mekedem Binfo Ama V'yadetza V'yein Ozer La Rauha Tzarim Sachaku Al Mishpateha Chet Chatea Yerushalayim Al Kein L'nidayata Kol Mechabdeha Hiziluha Ki Ra'u Ervata Gam Hinencha V'tashov Achor Tumata V'shueh Lo Zachra Acharita V'teiret Playim Ein Menachem La Re Adonai Edoni Igdi Oye Yado Paras Tsar Al Kol Machamadeh Kirata Goyim Ba'u Mikdasha Asher Tzivita Lo Yavo Vakahal La Kol Menachim Mevakshim Lachem Natnu Machamadehem Ve'ochel Le'ashiv Nafesh Re'ei Adonai Ve'habita Ki Hayiti Zolela Lo Aleichem Kol Ovrei Derech Habitu Uru Im Yesh Machov K'machovi Asher Olal Li Asher Hoga Adonai Beyom Chavon Apo Nimarom Shalach Eish B'atzmotai Vayirdena Paras Rashet L'Raglai Heshivani Achor Nitanani Shomema Kol Hayom Dava Nishka Ol Peshai B'yado Yistargu Alu al Tzavari Ichshil Kochi Nitanani Adonai Bidei Lo Uchalku Sila Kol Abirai Adonai Bekirbi Kara Alai Moed לשבור בחוריי. גת דרך אדוני, לבתולת בת יהודה. על אלה אני בוכייה, איני יורד מים, כי רחק ממני, מנחם משיב נפשי, היו בניי שוממים, כי גבר אויב, פרסת ציון בידך, אין מנחם לה, ציווה אדוני, ליעקב סביבה צריו, הייתה ירושלים לנידה ביניהם, צדיק הוא אדוני כפיהו מריתי, שימונה כל העמים, וראו מכאובי, בתולותיי ובחוריי, הלכו בשבי. קראתי למאהבי, הנימוני, כהני וזקני, בעיר גבהו, כי ביקשו אוכל לנו, וישיבו את נפשם. ראה אדוני כי צר לי, מאי חומר מרו, נהפך ליבי בקרבי, כי מרו מריתי, מחוץ שקלה חרב, בבית כמוות. שמעו כי ננחה אני, אין מנחם לי, כל אויבי שמעו רעתי ששו, כי אתה עשית, הבאת יום קראת, ויהיו חמוני, תבוא חורתה לפניך, ועולל למו, כאשר עללת לי על כל פשעי, כי רבות הנחותיי, וליבי דווי.
B'chayoni b'apo, Adonai es bas Zion, Yishlich mishamayim eretz tiferes Yisrael, V'lo zachar hadom raglav b'yom apo, V'ila Adonai v'lo chama, Eis k'los Yaakov, Paras beroso, Yitzrei vas Yehuda, Higia la'aretz, Hilel mamlacha v'sarecha, Vada b'choriah, Kol keren Yisrael, Eshivacho yemino mibnei Yehi, Vayiv'ar b'Yaakov ke'esh le'hava, Achila Savi, Torah Kashto Koye, Nitzav Yemino Kitzar, Vayaharo Kol Machna De'ayim, Ve'ohel Bastio Shapak Ka'esh Chamaso, Haya Adonai Ke'oye Bila Yisrael, Bila Kol Armenoseha, She faced me tzarav, Vayeret v'vas Yehuda ta'aniya va'aniya. Vayachmos kagat suko, she faced molado, she kaf Adonai b'tzion moed b'shabas, vayin'atz b'za'amapo, melech v'kohen, zanaf Adonai, Nisvichol ni'er mikdasho, Hiskir bi'adoye chomo sarmenoseha, Kol nasenu veis Adonai, Kiyom mo'ed, Chashav Adonai, Lahashchis chomas bas Tzion, Na'tzakav lo ishiv yado b'aleha, Vayagel b'choma, Yaktavu la'alu, Tavu ba'aretz sha'areha, Tohu la'aretz she'areha ibad v'shivar v'richeha malkah v'sareha v'goyim ein Torah kamiviyeha lo matzu chazon me'adonoi yeshavu la'aretz hidevu ziknei basiyon Helu afar al rosham chabiru sakim Horidu la'aretz roshan v'sulos Yerushalayim Halu admo seinai Homar maru me'ai Yishpach la'aretz kiveti al shever basami Ve'atei polel v'yonei kirchovos kiryah Limosan yom biru aye davan hayim V'isatafan kechalal birchovos sir V'ishtafet nafsham el peki mosan Ma'idech ma'adam elach Hafas Yerushalayim V'ashtelach anachamech v'sulas bas Tzion Yigodol kayam shivrech mi yipalach Mivyah yichazulach shav yisafel V'lo gilu al avonech lehashiv shevuseich Vayechezulach mas'os shav u'maduchim Sakufu alayich kapayim polo vrederech Shoriku vayani rosham alvas Yerushalayim azos ha'ir sheyomeru kelilas yofi masos l'kol haaretz Hatsu alayich bihem kol yevayich Shoriku vayachar kushein amru bilanu ach zehayom Shekivinu matzanu ra'inu Asa Adonai asher zaman Yitzayim raso asher tziva mimekedem Horas v'lo chamal Vaysamach alayich oyev herim Keren sarayich Tza'ak libam el Adonai Chomas bastion, Horivi chanach al dima, Yomam v'layla, Al titni fugas lach, Al tidom bas einei, Kumi broni v'layla, L'rosh ashmuros, Shifchi chamayim libet lo, Chafenei Adonai, Se'i imakapai, Al nefesh omalayich watu fingerav rosh kofutzos. Re'ei Adonai dehabita leni olaltato intochalna nashim kiryam odele tipuchim im yeharei b'mikdash Adonai kohen denavi. Shachavu la'aretz futzos na'ar v'zakein V'sulosayim v'achurai nafelu v'charev Harata b'yom ha'pecha Tavachta lo chamalta Tikra b'yom mo'ed V'gurai misaviv V'lo hayad b'yom ha'af Adonai Halif v'savid Asher tipachti v'rivisi Oyevi pilam.
Ani agaberoni, v'sheder roso, osinaha, ayola, Moshe Lord, ach b'yoshuv, Yavoch yodo, kol hayom, Ila v'sari dori, Shiva atzmosoi, Onolai, v'yata, v'shislo, V'machashakim o shiva niknesei olam, Todar badi, v'oitzer, v'choshti, Gam, Ki ezak vashavaya, so sam tifilosi, Toda drochai v'gazis, v'sivosa v'idva, Dovorevuli, Ari v'historim, Drochai sorer, v'ashacheni, Sovani shomer, Dorach kashto, Hayatzi beini, Hamatara lachbeitz, Evi v'chul yosai, B'nei hashmosai, Pagisi secho b'chol ami, Niginosa kol hayom, V'sviani v'amrori, v'amrana, V'aris v'chatzot shinai, V'chbishani bo'ever, V'atiznach mishalom, Nafshi noshisi tova, V'omar v'ad netzchi, V'sochalti me'adonai, Zchoroni umrudi v'anobarosh, Zochor tizkor, V'sashoach olai nafshi, Zos ashina ulivi, Al keinochil, Chaste Adonai ki lo samru, Ki lo chalu rachamov, Chadoshim ha'bekorim, Rabba v'nasecha, Chelki Adonai umro nafshi, Al keinochilo, Tov Adonai l'kavod, V'nefesh v'yushenu, Tov yochil v'duam, V'shuas Adonai, Tov l'never, Kisa'od v'ram, Yeshem v'adam yidam, Kinotah l'vam, Yiten gafar piyu, Ulai yishtika, Yiten urakeyu, V'chis v'adlecha, Ki lo yiznach, V'yolam Adonai ki mola, V'richam v'chasada ki, Lo yina midba, V'yatem leish, V'lakei kachas v'lo, Ko asirei haaretz, Atos mishpacha v'neged b'nei Yaakov, Aviz Hadam midba Adonai v'ra, Mi zeh amar v'tei, Adonai lo tziva, Mi pi hayom lo sitzei, Haros v'atov, V'yisomei Adam chai geder achato, Nach besoch rocheinu v'nach Torah, V'noshuva ad Adonai, Nisod v'aveinu al kapayim elel, V'shamayim, Nachnu v'shahnu v'rinu, Ata lo sabata, Sako sabah patilfeinu, Orata lo chamata, Sako sabah never tefillah, Tzchi u'ma'os, Tzisimeni b'kereb u'amim, Tzchi u'ma'os, Tzisimenu b'kereb u'amim, Matzu aleinu b'yam ko'edeinu, Pachat v'chachas, Hayalanu ha'shes kashaver, Al yemayim tirayim, Al shever basami, Eini ra, V'osimem inachlos, Adashif v'yera, Adonai shamayim, Eini olov nafshi mikol nosi, Tzaduni katzikoi v'echinam, Samsu v'abor chayai, Hayatu eveni, Tzachomai maroshi, Amar kinzati, Parasi shimcha Adonai v'bo tachiyos, Koli shamata, Atalei moznecha, Rafasi v'shavasi, Rafta v'yomechoecha, Amarta altira, Rafta Adonai, Yivei nafshi v'atachayai, Roisa Adonai avasosi, Shofta mishmati, Roisa kolik masa, Kamak shosami, Shomata chemosam Adonai, Kamak shosam, Sivsei kamai l'heyonam, Olai kol hayom, Shivtam kimosam avita, Mani Mosam, Toshibohem Gemu, Adonai, Maseidehem, Titen Mohem Ginasle, Talosuchohem, Tilof Yah Pesashidem, Itach Hashem Adonai.
Eicha Yuan Zahav Yishlech B'Shemato Tishtapech Mavnei Kodesh B'Rosh Chutzot B'nei Tzion Haikarim Hamesulaim B'Paz Eicha Nechshevu L'Nivlei Cheres Maseh Yotzer גם תנים לך לתחושה יקרו גוריהם, ותמים יחזר קייני במדבר, נבט לשון יולד, אל תיקו בעצמה, עוללים שב לחם פורס, עמהם. האוכלים למעדנים נשמו בחוצות, האמונים עלי תורה ידקו השפטות. ויגדל עוון בת עמי בחטאת צדום, על פותח מורגה ולא חלובה ידיים. Yakun Izirah Misheled Tzafu Mechala Admuetzem Mipninim Sapir Gizratam Ashaf Mishechor Tauram Lo Nikeru Bachutzot Tzafad Oram Atzmam Yaveh Shayachaim Tovim hayu chalei cherev mechalei rav shehem yazuhu midukarim mitnuvot sadai yideh nashim rachamaniyot bishelu yachihem hayu levarod lamot Shever batami, kila Adonai chamato shafach haroto, vayatzeresh b'tzion vatocha yisodoteha. Lo hemino malchei eretz kol yoshevei tevel, ki avot sar ve'oyev b'sha'arei Yerushalayim, Mechatot Neviah Havonot Kohaneha, Hashofechim B'Kirba, Dam Tzadikim, Na'o Ivrim B'Chutzot Negoalu B'Dam, Below Yuchilu Yigu B'Yogushehem, Surutamei Karim Suru, suru, altigau, kinatsu, gamnau. Amiru bagoyim, lo yosifu lagur. Pnei Adonai chilekam, lo yosif lahapitam. Pnei foanim lo nasau, uskenim lo chananu. Odeinu tiflena inenu, El Ezrateinu Havel, B'tzipiateinu Sipinu, El Goy Lo Yoshia, Tzadu Tzadeinu, Milechet Birchokoteinu, Karev Kitzeinu, Malu Yameinu, Kiva Kitzeinu, Kalim Hayu Rodefeinu, Minishrei Shamayim. Al harim dilakunu bamibar arivulanu Ruach Apeinu, Mashiach Adonai Yilkad, Bishchitotam Asher Amarnu, B'tzilo Nichyat Vagoyim. Sisi B'simechi Bat Edom Yoshevet Eretzu. Gam alayich tavor kos tishkeri v'tikari. Tamavonech bat Zion lo yosif lehaglotech. Bakar avonech bat Edom gila al chatotai.
Zechor Adonai mehayalanu habita ure'echatenu nachalatenu nehechal ezorim batenu lenokrim yetonim hayinu beyeinav imotenu ke'almanot Meimenu bechesef shatinu, etzeinu b'mechir yavo. Al tzavarenu nirdachnu, yaganu v'lohonu achlanu. Mitzrayim natanu yad, Ashur lizbo alachem. Avotenu chatu b'einam, V'anachnu avnotehem savanu, avadim mashuvanu, horek yadam. V'nafshenu navi lachmenu, mipnei cheret hamidbar. Orenu ketanur nichmaru, mipnei zalafora. Nashim Betziyonu Betulo Beore Yehuda Sarim Beyadam Nidru Pnei Zekenim Lo Nehedaru Bachurim Techon Nasau Ne'arim Ba'etz Hasharu Zekenim Nishar Shabbatu Bachurim Ninatam Shabbat Mesos Lidenu Nehepach Le'evel Necholenu Nafla Ateret Oshinu Oy Nolanu Kichatanu Alzeh Hayat Davel Ibenu Al Elech Hashefu Eineinu Al Har Zion Sheshamein Shu'alim Hilchubo Ata Adonai Le'olam Teshay Kis Acha L'Dor Hador Lama Lanetzach Tishlachenu Tazvenu Le'orech Yamim Hashivenu Adonai Eilecha V'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem Ki imos me'astanu Katzavta aleinu Ad me'od
Hashivenu Adonai Eilecha V'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu
Hashivenu Adonai Eilecha V'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
Continue page 48, Zechor Hashem Hayalan. Take that closer in. Oi, quando eu for essa
Oi, Kinamadava. Sanatonia, Oi, in Shavat, Oi, Mishpat Yotamon to Shabbat, Sosnipain, Oi, Nafoter saying, Israel, Nika saying, Oi, Zayah, the very Oi. Page 54.
We're on page 58. We're going to start the fourth kina. For those who don't know, this fourth kina is about the tragedy of the Jewish people not being able to get along in two states of the Jewish people, two kingdoms, Yisrael and Yehuda. And they're personified through two women, Aholah, personification of Shomron, which is the capital city of Malchut Yisrael, where the 10 tribes lived, and Aholiva, personification of Malchut Yehuda, the kingdom of Judea, that was representative of the two tribes. If you read it in the English, if you've never read it before, you'll see it's about the complaint back and forth. It's like they're complaining who suffered more. And part of the tragedy was they didn't get along. They were two different kingdoms. But more than that, they couldn't even appreciate the suffering of the other. They're always looking at how their suffering must be worse. So I want to tell you that this past year, that was fixed. You know that the RCA, the British Council of America, ran 6 missions to Israel. On one of those missions, Rav Doron Peretz, the head of World Mizrahi, at that time they didn't know yet that his son Daniel Shemikum Damo had perished. They thought he was kidnapped, he was missing. They assumed at that point he was taken captive from his tank. He was still alive. So on one of those missions, there were 6 such missions. On one of those missions, he was giving a talk to the rabbis, and he was in the middle of describing what happened to his son in Gaza. He was taken to Gaza. They didn't know if he was alive or dead yet. At that point, they hadn't found out. And when he finishes, as he's finishing his talk, there's a few minutes left. In the back room, he sees Rav Shmuel Slotky come in. Rav Shmuel Slotky had recently retired as the beloved rabbi of the young Israel of Ramot. He was a humble man, great learning, midot tovot, well known, and also well known that his 2 sons, Noam and Yishai, had run from Be'er Sheva together on October the 7th, 2 brothers, to fight the terrorists at Kibbutz Adumim. And they both fell in battle on October the 7th. Rav Doron was in the middle of a sentence. He saw Rav Slotky in the back of the room. He stopped, and he walked over to Rav Slotky, and he gave him a hug. He said, Rav Shmuel, I feel inadequate. I lost 1 son, and he's missing now, but you have lost 2 sons, and you already know that the loss is final. Who am I to continue speaking when others have given more? The RCA's representative in Israel, Rabbi Reuven Tradverse from Shalayim, said he automatically thought immediately of this kina. This was in the fall that this story happened. He was already thinking about Tisha B'Av. Malchut Israel, Olah, challenging the kingdom of Malchut Yehuda, Olivat, the suffering contest. Your destruction is worse, but mine is worse than yours, etc. But here, Rav Doron went over to his friend, Rav Shmuel. He said, I can't even speak in your presence. You've lost so much, and I feel your pain even worse than I feel my own. Let's say together, page 58, Shomron Kol Titein.
Shomron Kol Titein. Page 62. Hey. Oh, the Bechir, it's in this Yerushalayim, Drachim, Simti, Mechim, Yerushalayim. Maskinat, Anna, Bechir, it's in this Yerushalayim. Drachim, Simti, Mechim, Yerushalayim.
So we're going to continue now on page 384 with the kina we cite each year on the night of Tisha B'Av. Another one tomorrow, a different one for the Shoah. It's on page 384. On July the 23rd, 1942, it was Tisha B'Av. It was when the gassing operations began at Treblinka. Over 925,000 people would be murdered there in Treblinka. Beginning of August of that year, a carpenter named Yankel Wernick was deported there. And he has many harrowing accounts of what happened when he arrived there. The deportation from the Warsaw Ghetto, from the Umschlagplatz, the arrival in Treblinka, the bodies that he saw, the people who he saw alive and then dead, the people who were killed being locked in the gas chamber overnight without the gas even being turned on, just left there through the summer night to choke to death. Yankel Wernick is one of the few survivors of Treblinka. He participated on August the 2nd, 1943, in the Treblinka uprising. That date corresponds to the 1st of Av, 5703. After reaching Warsaw, following that uprising, he wrote down his experiences. In 1944, they were published by the Polish resistance as a brochure called A Year in Treblinka, a terrifying account of nearly a year he spent in the extermination camp in Treblinka, to where he was deported rather, in August of 1942. In Terence de Prez, the survivor, he writes about a survivor of Dachau who spoke to him and told him the following: the SS guards took pleasure in telling us that we had no chance of coming out alive, a point they emphasized with particular relish, by insisting that after the war, the rest of the world would not believe what happened. There would be rumors, speculations, but no clear evidence, and people would conclude that evil on such a scale was just not possible. Indeed, that's the terror of the survivor, that they will not be believed when they speak about their harrowing experience. As we prepare to recite the Kina Korban Europa on page 384, I'll share with you the story in Birkenau in January of 1943 in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Rivka Liebeskind, who recalled her first Friday night on January 22nd, 1943. Martin Gilbert tells her story in his voluminous work, entitled The Holocaust, and he writes as follows: crowded with hundreds of other women into one of the huts or blocks, tier upon tier, candles had been acquired, and on the top shelf of our block, explained Rivka Liebeskind, we were at the time 10 to 12 girls. We lit those candles. We lit the candles and quietly began singing the songs for Shabbos. We did not know, she added, what was happening around us, but after a few minutes, we heard stifled crying from all the shelves around us. First we were frightened, then moved. Then we saw that they could jump from one shelf to another. There were Jewish women who had already been there for years. They gathered around us and listened to our tefillah and singing. Soon, there were those who came off their own shelves and asked to be allowed to bless the candles too. Continue now on page 384 with Kinal Zichron HaKadosh and Shokor Europa. Ten years ago tonight, for those who are here in this room, remember the Israeli Consul General joined us, Roy Gilad. He joined us because we were at the end of the war that was taking place that summer. The Milchama was then called Tzuk Eitan. And that night, I spoke to you about a book that was written by someone named Simcha Golden. Simcha Golden is a historian who is focused on medieval Jewish history. And he wrote a book called The Ways of Jewish Martyrdom. What you need to know about Simcha Golden is that Simcha Golden dedicated this book in honor of his children, among them his twins. One of those twin boys is Hadar Golden, who had just been killed and taken captive. And Hadar Golden is, of course, unfortunately, sadly, right now, still Bashevi. We think there are, apparently according to today, there are somewhere in the order of 30 to 35 of the Chatufim who are still in this world. The rest of them are just waiting for Kvura. But I remind you of this, not just because of the fact that it's Simcha Golden and the story of Hadar Golden, but because of what he writes in the preface. Simcha Golden said the idea for this book that he wrote was hatched one stormy night during the most surrealistic situation in which I've ever found myself. It was during the Gulf War of 1991. Israel was under constant bombardment by Iraqi Scud missiles. Citizens were required to carry gas masks wherever they went and to prepare airtight sealed rooms in their homes as protection against chemical and biological weapons. 2 hours after the conclusion of the Sabbath, I left my wife, pregnant with twins, in the company of my 8-year-old son and went out into the rainy night with my 12-year-old daughter. Our mission was to get my wife some sort of software from a friend at the Technion, equipped with cardboard boxes out of which grinned our hollow-eyed gas masks. We drove from Eshkar to Kamon, two of the highest points in the wondrous hills of the Galilee. We had to descend along a meandering and totally dark road from a height of 380 meters, cross the town of Carmiel, and climb an equally twisting road to an altitude of 800 meters. As we were approaching the first white houses at the top of the Kamon Ridge, we heard the whisper, poisonous snake, Nahash Tsefa, the code words broadcast on the radio when incoming missiles were detected. And we were caught in the crossfire of two whales, the siren making its way up the mountain from the Carmiel and the siren mounted on the rooftop above us. Houses were bolted from within, families plunged into their sealed rooms, and we were stuck in a 1985 Fiesta that was far from secure. The rain became harder, and the voice of IDF spokesman Nachman Shai silenced the newscaster's babble. In my rearview mirror, I saw my daughter loosen her gas mask straps and fit it on her head, as if born to it. I knew that the chemical agents were ineffective at that altitude and in that downpour, but my logic melted at the sight of my daughter's eyes. I had to follow suit. We had a peaceful, lucent interval at the peak of the mountain in pouring rain as lightning tore holes through the sky and illuminated the valley below. I could see the houses, the streets, the gardens of Carmiel, and even the distant lights of my own home above the town. Then the hole was shut, and the world again was drenched in torrents of water. Imprisoned in my mask, my worries wandered to my wife and son on the hill, across the valley, and of course, to my unborn twins, safe in that womb within the sealed room. Those twins were born shortly thereafter. Their names are Hadar and Sur. We're still waiting for Hadar Golden to come home, to have a proper Torah Israel. We're still waiting for so many of the Chatufim who have left the world to be brought to Torah Israel. We're waiting for Hirsch Goldberg Poland, Lahavda ben Acham ben Achaim, to come back to his family, to our family, to be able to celebrate Smachot together as an extended family. We're waiting for all these things. I remind you of this story from 10 years ago, also to remind you that once upon a time there was an enemy of the Jewish people named Saddam Hussein, Yamach Shemo V'Zichro. And it turned out in the end, of course, that we were rescued from his clutches. Tomorrow, I will depart from my usual presentation of the keynote, because we're inserting several new keynotes that were written in the last year, mostly written in Eretz Yisrael, because we're all trying to wrap our heads around the events that have transpired over these past 10 months. As Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim, we believe that there is a reason for them, even if we don't understand it. And we know that we have work to do, to make redress, to try to do tshuva, to try to find points of unity and points of light, even in great darkness and great sadness. And I believe there are many of those that have come up even in the great darkness, in the contrast of Hashakim, Heshivan, as we read in Megillah. In the darkness, God caused us to sit, which is why we dim the lights in the room. And we also can find many points of greatness and light. When Simcha Golden spoke right after, they realized that his son was not actually, they hadn't recovered the body. He spoke at a ceremony, and he said, the one thing I'm asking is that there should be unity. There was unity when my son died, we should continue to have unity. He wrote this, said this 10 years ago. And he spoke about his son, that his son was very much about trying to find the goodness in fellow Jews and the like. We'll recite now the Kina on the events of Harvot Barzel. To the people who are still with us on Zoom, I'm actually going to put it in the chat, so you'll have the link. You'll be able to just click on it, and you'll be able to see it also, and you'll be able to participate remotely. It's actually to a tune that many of us already know, the tune of Belitzion. You don't know it, so you'll try to follow along. Let's see if I can put it on the screen 1 second, sorry. Bit of delay. There's also an email that I sent you today. But, okay. So people who are at home, if you just click on that link that I put in the chat, you'll be able to participate with us in this keynote. And if you look in the keynote, if you scan with your eye on the English side, just before we say it, you'll see that Rav Rimon, great tzaddik and great chacham, writes not only about the sadness and the destruction and the attack and the assault, but also writes about the defense. You see all of these keynotes, all of them, every single one of them was just about the tears. And the only solace was, okay, at least we survived. But this keynote, as you'll see, actually also includes a word of hodah to Hashem, that we actually have a Medina, that there actually are chayalim, and those chayalim can defend Klal Yisrael, but Ezra Hashem Barach, some of whom herald from our community. We'll hear from some tomorrow, now at 5 o'clock tomorrow, we'll hear from some of them. And we should have that in mind also on this Tisha B'Av, that even as we're sad and we're thinking about sadness throughout Jewish history, the sadness of Parvot Barzal and Chemet Simchat Torah since 10:7, we do have ways of at least defending ourselves that were not afforded to us from 70 CE pretty much until now. So let's recite together in closing this keynote, and then we'll conclude the service right after that. Again, if you're online, you just click on the button on the chat and be able to sing with us. He wrote it according to the tune of Elizion. Simchat Torah, Shmini Atzeret, Ach Necholeinu, Tukar Yeret, Yom Zeh, Nifritzu Aydero, Yishuvei Avotei, Ocha Kibbutz Deiro, Ichar Tzenu, Haydazem Hematz, Timalei Yaretz Hamatz, Neretzu Arazam, Nikol HaResha, Mishloresh Hamatz, Yatzah Tzepha, Ichabim Sheva, Asu Al-Nafsha, Ve'Yadiko, Oyei Ratzar, Atzireo, Rotzeach Mashkir, Ve'Yakov, Ichabim Filah Yashem, Yadodi, Shoshanim Yikvavim, Yikvavim, Nivatzim, Alikeyad Vashem, Eicha Bishach, Shirim Vashem, Nun Hashem, Namaresh, Yehudim Makor, Nechavat Kodesh, Nachal Omesh, Shabbat Kodesh, Eicha Mitzion, Hayir Havim, Naflu B'yei, Atzim Halutim, Rutei B'chei, Tulimanavi, Achim Chatufim, Yechasim, O Shimcha Yitvarech, Tachmi Melchu, Et Shimcha L'Gader, Ameitu Rei, Yom HaYisrael, Chozkim Yamseinu, Maltzion, Kivarselanu, Amitzon, Amitzon, Adonai Nefesh, Yatzar, V'Gvurata, V'Yishu Adonai, Yitzchak, Kol Hayatenu, Obayom, Yitmayat Hareinu, U'Drala Yersu, Yiratenu, Nafsham B'Chama, Mosri Moreinu, Avidu Malkeinu, V'Madafinu, Al Shimcha Levo, Mikra Shemei, Zocher U'Mazkir, Yitzachon Yidaro, Nitna Malotenu, V'Ritcha U'Nedet, Lanu Yatseinu, Yatzei Paras, Yazmu Alino, Achim Shavu, Zikreinu, Sifurim Yashu, B'nei Emri Anavu, Et Rahu, V'Ruach, V'Ruach, V'Ruach,
Continue now on the top of page 66.
Shabbos tomorrow morning, care of both Minyanim and the main show, 6 o'clock. And